Silence filled the room long before anyone realized something was wrong. The clock on the wall kept ticking, steady and indifferent, each second echoing louder than the last. Don Vito Corleone sat behind his desk, hands folded, eyes calm, his face carrying the stillness of a man who had waded through wars, betrayals, and the slow passing of empires. This time, however, he was not waiting for a rival, a debtor, or a frightened man seeking protection. He was waiting for men who had already promised to come, and they did not arrive. What happens when the most powerful man in New York is made to wait in his own office? What kind of message is sent when respect is denied to a man whose word has built and broken destinies? Before we go any further, leave a comment telling me what you believe true power really looks like. Is it loud and aggressive, or silent and absolute? If you're enjoying stories that reveal the hidden psychology behind legendary figures, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share your thoughts below. Your voice matters here, just like every choice matters in the world we're about to enter. The door remained closed. The guards exchanged glances but said nothing. No one dared interrupt Don Vito's stillness. He did not tap his fingers. He did not sigh. He did not ask for explanations. He simply waited, and in that waiting, something far more dangerous than anger was forming. In another part of the city, 3 men sat in a polished conference room, laughing too loudly, congratulating themselves too early. They were studio executives, men who believed influence came from contracts, headlines, and connections. They had accepted Don Vito's invitation days ago. They had agreed to meet him personally. Yet at the last minute they chose something else. A lunch with investors, a photo opportunity, a symbolic gesture of independence. To them, Don Vito was old, traditional, a relic of another era. They believed the world had changed and that the Corleone name no longer carried the same weight. They assumed that making him wait would send a message of their own. They had no idea what kind of message they had just delivered. Back in the office, the door finally opened. Tom Hagen stepped inside quietly. His voice was low, careful, almost respectful of the silence itself. "They called," he said. "They won't be coming today. They said something urgent came up." Don Vito did not move. His eyes remained fixed forward, not on Tom, not on the walls, but on something much deeper. A memory, perhaps. A pattern. A truth he had learned long ago. He nodded once. "That is their decision," he said calmly. Nothing else? No raised voice? No threats? No visible irritation? The kind of calm that makes men uneasy, even when they don't understand why. Tom hesitated. "Do you want me to reschedule?" Don Vito finally turned his head. "No," he said. "Let them believe this moment passed." Tom understood immediately. This was not forgiveness. This was preparation. Don Vito leaned back slightly in his chair, his hands still folded. "A man who does not respect time," he said quietly, "does not respect consequences." The guards shifted their weight. Outside, the city kept moving, unaware that 3 careers had just been sentenced without a single word of anger. Across town, the executives finished their lunch. They toasted to new partnerships. They joked about how easy it was to outgrow old power structures. One of them even suggested they would send Don Vito a polite apology later, just to keep things smooth. They believed power was about who could say no the loudest. They did not realize power was about who could wait the longest. That same afternoon, the first call came. A promising film project lost its funding. No explanation. Just a quiet withdrawal from a major backer. Then a second call. A distribution deal was suddenly under review. Lawyers went silent. Emails went unanswered. Then a third. A rising actor pulled out of a contract, citing scheduling conflicts that did not exist the day before. The executives began to feel it. Not fear yet, just confusion. By evening, confusion turned into unease. They tried calling Tom Hagen. No response. They tried calling their political contact. No response. They tried calling a journalist friend. He declined the call. Something invisible was closing around them. In Don Vito's office, the phone rang softly. Tom answered, listened, then nodded. "It has started," he said. Don Vito closed his eyes for a brief moment, not in pleasure, not in anger, but in acceptance. This was not revenge. This was balance. "They chose disrespect," he said. "Now they will learn memory." Outside, the sun began to set, painting the city in gold and shadow. Somewhere in a glass office tower, 3 men stared at their phones, realizing too late that the world had shifted without asking their permission. And Don Vito Corleone was still waiting not for their apology, but for the moment when they would finally understand what they had done. The night brought no comfort. Sleep refused to visit the three executives, not because of nightmares, but because of an unbearable quiet. No calls, no emails, no messages. Their phones, once heavy with constant attention, now felt like dead weight in their hands. By morning, the silence had become louder than any threat. One of them, Richard Bell, finally broke it. "This is just coincidence," he said, pacing his penthouse living room. "Deals fall apart all the time." But his voice lacked conviction. His eyes betrayed him. The second, Anthony Russo, sat on the edge of a leather couch, scrolling through his phone again and again. "3 contracts in one day don't just fall apart," he muttered. "Not like this." The third, Mark Feldman, stared out the window at the skyline. "We should have gone to that meeting," he said quietly. No one answered him. Across the city, Don Vito Corleone sat in the same office, at the same desk, in the same stillness. The difference now was that the world was beginning to respond to his silence. Tom Hagen stood before him with a folder. "2 banks froze their lines of credit," he said, "and the union leaders won't return their calls." Don Vito nodded. "Good. Not enough to break them. Enough to make them listen." Tom hesitated. "They might try to come see you now." "They will," Don Vito said, "but not yet. First, they must understand they are not being punished. They are being corrected." That afternoon, the executives received a message from an assistant they barely remembered hiring. It was short, formal, polite. "Mr. Corleone is unavailable for the foreseeable future." No signature, no explanation. That message did something worse than anger. It removed hope. Panic began to grow teeth. Anthony called his agent. The agent did not answer. Mark called his lawyer. The lawyer sent a brief text. "I can no longer represent you. Best of luck." Richard tried to reach his biggest investor. The number had been disconnected. Their world was shrinking. By evening, they finally received a call. Not from Don Vito, from a man named Salvatore Tessio. He spoke calmly, respectfully, almost kindly. "You have caused offense," Tessio said. "Not intentionally, perhaps, but deeply." Richard swallowed. "We can explain. We had a conflict. We meant no disrespect." Tessio paused. "Respect is not what you mean. It is what you show." "What can we do?" Mark asked. Tessio's voice remained steady. "For now, nothing. You will wait." The call ended. That single sentence cut deeper than any threat. Waiting had always been Don Vito's weapon. Now it was theirs. Days passed. The projects did not return. The money did not return. The silence did not break. Instead, rumors began to spread. Whispers that they were difficult to work with, that they were unreliable, that they had burned bridges. Their names, once invitations, were now warnings. Richard tried to fight back. He went public. He called a press conference. He smiled for the cameras and denied everything. The next morning, his company stock dropped 20%. No reason given. Just fear. Anthony attempted a different approach. He tried to reach rival families. He offered partnerships, favors, anything. No one accepted. Every door closed before he reached it. Mark, the quietest of the three, finally did what the others feared most. He went to Don Vito's office. He stood outside the door for 20 minutes before being allowed in. When he finally entered, he saw Don Vito sitting exactly as he had days before. Calm, still, waiting. Mark swallowed his pride. "I came to apologize," he said. "We made a mistake." Don Vito looked at him without hostility, without warmth. "A mistake," he repeated. "Yes," Mark said quickly. "We didn't understand the importance of the meeting. We meant no disrespect." Don Vito's voice was soft. "When you choose your lunch over your word, you are not choosing food. You are choosing your future." Mark felt his knees weaken. "I can fix this," he said. "I can bring the others. We can make this right." Don Vito leaned forward slightly. "No," he said. "You cannot fix what you did. You can only decide what you do next." Mark's voice trembled. "What do you want from us?" Don Vito's eyes hardened, just enough to be felt. "I want you to learn," he said, "and learning requires loss." Mark left the office feeling smaller than when he entered. That night, the final blow began forming. In Don Vito's office, Tom Hagen received another call. He listened. Then he looked at Don Vito. "They're ready," Tom said. Don Vito nodded once. "Then tomorrow," he said, "they will understand." Morning arrived without mercy. Richard woke up to 12 missed calls and a single voicemail from his accountant. His voice, usually confident and precise, now sounded hollow. "All your accounts are under audit," the message said. "Every single one. I don't know who triggered it, but it's aggressive." Anthony was already awake when his phone buzzed. A legal notice. A lawsuit filed overnight by a former partner he barely remembered crossing. The claim was enormous. The timing was impossible. Mark sat at his kitchen table, staring at a letter from the city zoning board. A project he had spent 2 years building had just been denied approval. No explanation. No appeal process mentioned. By noon they met again, this time not in a polished conference room, but in a quiet back booth of a nearly empty restaurant. "This is a war," Richard whispered. "We need to fight back." "With what?" Anthony snapped. "Every weapon we had is gone." Mark didn't speak. He only shook his head. Across the city, Don Vito Corleone stood by his window, watching the streets below. The city looked peaceful. It always did when storms were forming quietly. Tom Hagen entered. "The unions are done with them," he said. "No crews, no permits, no services." Don Vito nodded. "Good. Let the ground disappear under their feet." "They're panicking," Tom added. "They want another meeting." Don Vito turned slowly. "Now," he said. "They are ready to listen." That afternoon, a message arrived. "Tomorrow, noon, your office. We will all be there." Don Vito did not respond. At noon the next day, all 3 executives stood outside his door. Their suits were still expensive, but something about them looked wrong now. The confidence had drained from their posture. Their voices were low. Their eyes avoided each other. They were finally allowed in. Don Vito sat behind his desk, hands folded, expression unreadable. They stood. He did not invite them to sit. Richard spoke first. "Don Corleone, we are here to apologize." "Truly." Don Vito said nothing. Anthony swallowed. "We made a terrible mistake. We underestimated the importance of that meeting." Don Vito remained silent. Mark stepped forward. "We disrespected you," he said. "We disrespected your time. We disrespected your word." Don Vito finally spoke. "Yes," he said. "You did." The room felt smaller. Richard cleared his throat. "We're prepared to make amends, financially, publicly, privately, whatever it takes." Don Vito's eyes moved from one man to the next. "You think this is about money?" he said quietly. "That is your second mistake." He stood slowly. "When a man makes me wait, he tells me something about himself," Don Vito continued. "He tells me he does not understand weight, he does not understand memory, and he does not understand consequence." Anthony's hands trembled. "We understand now." Don Vito shook his head. "No," he said. "You feel now. Understanding comes later." Tom Hagen stepped forward and placed 3 folders on the desk. "These are your futures," Tom said calmly. They opened them. Richard's face went pale. "You're ending my company." Anthony's voice broke. "These lawsuits, they'll ruin me," Mark whispered. "My career is over." Don Vito looked at them without cruelty. "No," he said. "Your careers are not over. They are being corrected." Richard dropped to one knee. "Please," he said. "We'll do anything." Don Vito studied him. "There is nothing more dangerous than a man who promises anything," he said, "because it means he stands for nothing." He walked back behind his desk. "You will sell your company," Don Vito said. "To the buyer I choose, at a price I choose." Richard nodded desperately. "You," Don Vito said, turning to Anthony, "will publicly accept responsibility for a scandal that is not yours. It will cleanse the system. It will not cleanse you." Anthony's mouth opened. No sound came out. "And you," Don Vito said, looking at Mark, "will disappear from this industry. You will live comfortably, quietly. You will never attach your name to power again." Mark bowed his head. "You are not being punished," Don Vito said. "You are being rebalanced." Silence. Richard whispered, "And if we refuse?" Don Vito's voice dropped. "Then what you have lost so far will feel like mercy." They did not refuse. They signed. They left. Outside, the city looked the same. Their lives were not. Back in the office, Tom exhaled quietly. "It's done." Don Vito closed his eyes for a moment. "Not yet," he said. "The lesson is not complete until it echoes." Tom nodded. "There is still the journalist." Don Vito opened his eyes. "Yes," he said. "Let the story be told, but not the one they expect." And somewhere else in the city, a reporter began typing a headline that would change everything. The article went live at dawn. Not a scandal, not an accusation, not a dramatic expose. It was worse. The headline spoke of industry restructuring, of ethical realignment, of a quiet transfer of power. The names of Richard, Anthony, and Mark appeared not as villains, but as examples of men who had lost relevance in a rapidly changing world. No mention of Don Vito Corleone, no visible fingerprints. But everyone who mattered understood exactly who had written the ending. By mid-morning, Richard's phone rang non-stop, not with sympathy, with offers, predatory ones. Companies looking to buy his assets at a fraction of their value. Former allies suddenly acting like strangers. Anthony was summoned by his legal team. The scandal he had agreed to carry was already spreading through the press, carefully framed as a noble act of accountability. His reputation collapsed in hours. Mark packed his office into 2 cardboard boxes. No farewell party, no goodbye emails, just silence, heavy and final. Across the city, Don Vito sat with Tom Hagen and Sonny Corleone. Sonny paced. "You could have crushed them completely," he said. "Why leave them breathing?" Don Vito looked at his eldest son with calm disappointment. "Because fear ends," he said. "Memory lasts." Sonny frowned. "They'll hate you forever." Don Vito nodded. "Good. Hatred keeps lessons alive." Tom adjusted his glasses. "The journalist wants a follow-up interview. He thinks something bigger is happening." Don Vito smiled faintly. "He is right, but he will never know why." That afternoon, Richard arrived unannounced at Don Vito's office. The guards tried to stop him. Don Vito allowed him in. Richard looked broken, not financially, spiritually. "I did everything you asked," he said. "It's not stopping." Don Vito gestured for him to sit. Richard hesitated, then sat. "You think obedience buys forgiveness?" Don Vito said softly. "It does not. It buys survival." Richard's voice cracked. "What do you want from me now?" Don Vito leaned forward. "I want you to remember this feeling every time you consider disrespecting another man's word." Richard nodded, tears in his eyes. "You are alive," Don Vito continued. "You are wealthy. You are free. That means you have already been given mercy." Richard left without another word. That evening, Anthony attempted something reckless. He went to a rival family. He offered money. He offered secrets. He offered loyalty. The rival family listened politely. Then they called Don Vito. Anthony was escorted out and told never to return. The message reached Don Vito within the hour. He did not react. Mark, on the other hand, made a different choice. He disappeared quietly. No press, no interviews, no public bitterness. He moved to a small coastal town. He opened a modest restaurant. He never spoke of the past. Don Vito respected that. Of the 3, he told Tom, he is the only one who truly learned. But the story was not finished. Not yet. Because power, when exercised perfectly, creates ripples that go far beyond its original target. A senator's office called Tom Hagen. A federal investigator asked questions. A new rival family began testing boundaries. They all sensed a shift. They all felt something tightening in the city. And they all wanted to know if Don Vito Corleone was still the one holding the invisible strings. That night, Don Vito sat alone in his office again. The same desk, the same chair, the same silence. But this time the silence carried weight. He closed his eyes, not in exhaustion, in reflection. "Power," he said quietly to no one, "is not what you take. It is what you leave standing." The phone rang. Tom answered. His face changed. "They're making a move," Tom said. Don Vito opened his eyes slowly. "Who?" Tom swallowed. "The Barzini family." The room felt colder. "They think you've gone soft," Tom added. "They think this was weakness." Don Vito stood. "Then they have misunderstood the lesson," he said. Outside, thunder rolled across the city, distant but approaching. And somewhere in the shadows, a new confrontation began forming, one that would not be solved with silence alone. The Barzini move came quietly. A warehouse fire, a union dispute, a sudden police inspection at one of the Corleone docks. Small actions, careful actions, the kind that tested limits without declaring war. Sonny wanted blood. "Let me handle it," he said. "They're disrespecting us." Don Vito raised his hand. "No," he said. "They are measuring us." Tom Hagen nodded. "They think your restraint with the executives means you've changed." Don Vito walked slowly to the window. "Restraint is not weakness," he said. "It is timing." That night, Don Vito requested a private meeting with Barzini's representative. Neutral ground, no weapons, just words. The meeting room was silent except for the sound of breathing. Barzini's man smiled too confidently. "We hear you've been busy correcting businessmen instead of protecting your territory." Don Vito smiled faintly. "I correct what threatens balance," he said. "Today it was businessmen. Tomorrow it could be families." The smile faded. "You're losing control," the man said. Don Vito leaned forward. "I was left waiting in my own office," he said calmly. "Minutes later, 3 careers were destroyed. And you believe I have lost control?" Silence. "You think silence means absence?" Don Vito continued. "It means preparation." The man swallowed. "You will withdraw your pressure," Don Vito said. "You will repair what you damaged. And you will send a public gesture of respect." "And if we don't?" the man asked. Don Vito's voice dropped. "Then what happened to those men will feel generous." The Barzini pressure stopped within 48 hours. The docks reopened. The inspections ended. The fire investigation was quietly closed. The message traveled fast. Weeks later, Richard sold his company at a devastating loss. Anthony resigned publicly, disgraced but alive. Mark never returned. The city adjusted, as it always did. One afternoon, Michael Corleone entered his father's office. "You taught them without killing them," he said. "Why?" Don Vito studied his son. "Because violence teaches fear," he said. "But loss teaches wisdom." Michael nodded slowly. "And if they forget?" "They won't," Don Vito said. "Men never forget who humiliated them quietly." Michael hesitated. "Is that power?" Don Vito smiled faintly. "No," he said. "That is restraint." He stood. "Power is knowing you could destroy someone, and choosing not to, because your lesson will last longer than their life." That evening, Don Vito returned to his desk. The same chair. But now the city outside was calmer, balanced. He closed his eyes, not in weariness, in peace. "They made me wait," he said softly, "and they learned that time belongs to those who respect it." The phone rang. Tom answered. "It's done," he said. "Everything is stable." Don Vito nodded. "Good," he said. He leaned back. The room fell silent again. But this time it was not the silence of tension. It was the silence of control. Because true power does not announce itself. It waits. And when it moves, the world adjusts.